Okay, so I don't do like solo book reviews so often because, to be honest, they're not that popular and not that many people watch them. However, there's a rare occasion where a book is so amazing that I want to do a whole review just on this book. Hi, I'm Steffi from Books That Teach Us. Welcome if you are new here. I am going to give a spoiler-free book review of Maid by Stephanie Lamb today. Now, this is one of the first times where I have watched a TV show, a Netflix show, and actually then gone to find the book. I feel like quite often I'm like, well, I've seen the TV show, so maybe I'm not going to read the book. I kind of know what happens, spoilers, etc., all of that, which is not included in this spoiler-free book review. But I knew I wanted to read this one straight away. After I finished that Netflix show, also called Maid, I went straight away online. I wanted to research Stephanie Land. I wanted to know what was kind of real about the documentary, what was made up. Honestly, so many of the worst parts of the documentary in terms of the awful, horrific stuff that happened to Stephanie Land and her daughter were true, were accurate, were not dramatized or made sensational by Netflix. It was real and raw. And I think that is why I just am so in awe of this book of Stephanie. She was able to overcome. For those of you who don't know, this is a memoir of Stephanie Land's experience of working as a cleaner, a domestic worker, living in poverty. At one point, she shares about being on 7 different types of government assistance, like just to be able to feed her daughter and put a roof over their heads as a single parent. It's really just so, I think, galling and shocking. And you're just like, how did she even get through this? It's just the toughest life. And she hated being called inspiring. So I don't want to call her that, because she was like, what's inspiring about survival and trying to survive? So I definitely don't want to use the word inspiring. It is kind of similar to the Netflix show in that it switches between time frames. So we meet Stephanie at one point on the journey, and then we get some flashbacks to how it was when she was living with her abusive partner. And I think actually the Netflix show really showed emotional abuse in a very eye-opening way. Of course, that's included in the book, but I think there was something just very visceral about seeing that enacted in a TV show. And it was just really eye-opening. And I really think it's something that everybody should watch so that it can help them understand emotional abuse in relationships. One of the kind of slightly more lighter hearted things that happens in the book is that Stephanie works for a cleaning company, and they go to like these big houses, and she goes regularly to these houses. So there's chapters where each of the chapters focuses on obviously what's happening in her own life, but also her experience of being in those houses, of being almost this invisible person, this ghost, cleaning these people's houses and actually knowing so much about them. The medication that they're taking, if they're happy or sad, the porn magazines that are there, when there's a couple and one of them gets sick, and how tenderly they cared for each other. And it really exacerbates Stephanie's own loneliness and kind of craving for love and attention. She really doesn't have that from anyone, from her family to the baby daddy experience to just, it's almost like there's just no one in her corner throughout the whole book. And it's just heartbreaking. It's so heartbreaking. I think it's really poignant, and for people to read this book now, particularly when there are a lot of decisions that are being made higher up that affect domestic workers like Stephanie. And she can't get over the stigma that people have towards the fact that she needs food stamps. She is working as full-time as is possible when she has a 2-year-old daughter. And she still needs food stamps to survive, despite grueling hours spent on her hands and knees, cleaning toilets, the grime, the sickness. She takes painkillers on a regular basis every single day to get through the day. It is really heartbreaking when she talks about the studio apartment, which is the only thing that she can afford for her and her daughter, and the level of black mold that has been there. I've actually had some fights with my own owner about black mold in my current accommodation. I live in a very humid country, and I think it just really hit home the fact that, like, she's got this little baby to look after, and the baby is so sick, and she just feels like she's failing as a mother. And it's like, you just want to shout at her. We know you're doing everything you can. You're literally in the system that is so rigged against you. I think one of the other big takeaways I took from the book, that as someone who didn't grow up in poverty, I have never been aware of the stigma where she would be using food stamps in a supermarket, and people are very, very limited for what they are able to buy with those food stamps. So there's a section in the book where she's used to buying organic milk to feed her daughter, and the food stamps change, the restriction has changed, and she can no longer get organic milk on those food stamps. And they've decided that they can have skim instead. And she's just so conscious of, but I know that's full of hormones and antibiotics and sugar, and that is not what I want to feed my daughter. But the rules have changed, and she can't afford organic milk. It's so much more expensive. And so she just, what can she do? And she's actually at a supermarket, and they try and implement it before it's even been implemented from the top, because they know it's coming. I found it incredibly eye-opening, and I think I really learned a lot about what it's like to be on the poverty line, working harder than all of the rest of us put together. Let's face it, single mothers hold off the world, and just to be getting so much aid, but nothing that is truly helping you to get out of that situation. It was quite enlightening to me as well when she was talking about basically like generations of poverty. So the kind of the trailers that her grandparents grew up in, and how everyone was just kind of stuck in this cycle and trying to get out. And I don't think it spoils it, but there is a very positive, happy ending at the end. And I just think it's one of those books that everyone should read to realize what it is like for people living in poverty. I think Stephanie Land is so eloquent about it, because she explains that, like, people talk openly about, oh God, there's people using food stamps and all this stigma. And they talk about it in front of her as if she wouldn't be one of those people. And she's like, I think it's because I'm white and I'm articulate, and people don't expect that someone like me could end up on food stamps, because they assume it's illegal immigrants, which, by the way, isn't possible, because you have to have certain, legal goods in to be able to access food stamps. So a lot of that is just complete lies. And she says she doesn't think people want to acknowledge that, because then they might realize how they might only be one unemployment job or one divorce away from homelessness and everything that she experienced. And I just think it's so admirable the way she pulls herself out of her situation steadily, gruelingly, knows that an education is her key to getting out of there for her and her daughter, which is something that she did manage to do. I'm just gobsmacked. If you've read this book, please leave me a comment and let me know your thoughts below, because it's everything. I actually just added this book to my list of books set in the United States of America. I also wanted to say that I have a book globe, which you can check out. It's an amazing spinning globe of countries all around the world, and you can click on a country and see my book recommendations, and it will take you to some of my videos as well. So this is 100% going on the list of acceptable. I'm also going to make a whole playlist for that shortly, so subscribe if you're interested.